The Democrat Party has succeeded in many ways in becoming a Marxist-like party where your alliance and allegiance to the party is more important than your alliance or allegiance to anything else. The House Judiciary Committee held a hearing in Manhattan which got the Democrats very angry because they held a hearing on the subject of crime. And it wasn't the subject of Donald Trump, which of course that's all the Democrats know what to do and how to do. It was actually a hearing on what's going on in Manhattan and the other boroughs, and a hearing on Alvin Bragg, the Soros district attorney, and trying to expose the failure of the Democrats to protect their communities. And for the Democrats, that meant this was a charade, that it was politically motivated. No matter how many desperate family members testified about the death, the murder of their loved ones, it didn't seem to affect the Democrats at all. They stick to their talking points. Why? Because if the Democrats wanted to reduce crime in major cities, they would do it. We know how to do it. There's two things that have to happen. Actually, three. You hire more cops, you prosecute the criminals that you catch, and then you put them in jail. That has worked for a long time. It worked for Rudy Giuliani when New York was a truly safe city. And it worked in Philadelphia and LA when we tried it and so forth. But when you lift all of those requirements, you attack the police, you have less police, police are leaving and retiring. And when you secrete left-wing ideological kooks as prosecutors who won't prosecute, as well as judges who won't judge properly, won't keep people in jail, this is what you get. So the Democrats want what's taking place. Oh, Mark, that sounds so awful. If they didn't want what's taking place, they would reverse course. But they're not reversing course. Now, Mark, why would they want this? Let's see. They want to destroy America. They want to collapse our society. They want to replace it with something else. That's what they're doing. They'll do it whether it's law enforcement, whether it's economics, whether it's race, whether it's the nuclear family. It doesn't matter. Look at the war on capitalism. So all those things that serve as the foundation to our principles, to our founding and so forth are under attack. And of course they're going to attack law and order, because a nation without law and order is not a nation. It's anarchy. So that is the backdrop of this. So let's take a listen to a gentleman, well, whose son was murdered. Go.
Nearly 2 years ago, on May 20th, 2021, I received a call no parent should ever receive. On the other line was my son Joseph, who quickly told me he was okay, but be beaten out of Times Square. He was needing medical attention.
Stop a sec. On Times Square. You guys been to Times Square? Used to be the safest place in New York. His son was beaten on Times Square. As you can see, he's a Jew, likely an Orthodox Jew, wearing the kippah. Go ahead.
The NYPD were extremely helpful and very supportive and did the best they possibly can. I was told they'd bring him to the emergency room in Bellevue Hospital. Without hesitation, I made a straight beeline straight to Manhattan, got in my car and drove to Manhattan. I got to the hospital. It was hard to believe what my son looked like. His face was beaten. His face was sprayed with mace. They punched him. One fella hit him with crutches. In Times Square, broad daylight, all because he's wearing a yarmulke going to a pro-Israel rally. Now, I'm in New York my whole life. I'm 57, never had problems like this. It was just very shocking to hear this. It was just like horrible thing. My wife and I, my wife was at home. She couldn't come with me. It was COVID. Only one person go to the hospital. I sit in front of the community, 2-year anniversary of the attack rapidly approaching, and the ongoing struggle with D.A. Bragg. This has been going on for 2 years. They have a film of this in black and white from people on the street in Times Square. It's an open and shut case. And D.A. Bragg is just schlepping this case along with no solution, offering deal after deal. One fella, Wasim Awade, was hitting my son with crutch, was offered a sweetheart deal, didn't take it yet. He was let out on probation. As he's getting out of the court, as he's getting out of jail, the friends are dancing with him on his shoulder. He said, "I will do this again." I will do this again. He had no qualms about doing it again, about beating up another Jewish person. And in fact, while he was out on bail, he had an incident with a road rage with an elderly man on the street. Bragg brought him in again, nothing. Just go out and behave yourself. This just emboldened him to act, and he doesn't care. I've been in 3 court hearings, and basically nothing has happened in 3 court hearings here in Lower Manhattan, a couple buildings down. And it's just very disheartening that I sit here today and nothing is getting done. My son Joseph was invited to the White House to appear in front of Joe Biden, our president, and a bunch of Kamala Harris and so forth. And this was not a partisan issue. There's an issue where they were beating up Asians in New York nonstop, no repercussions. Beating up Jews, pushing people in the subways, in the tracks, no repercussions. It's hard to understand what goes on. And here one fellow was offered a deal, no jail time, he only punched my son once. This is what Bragg was offering to someone, hit my son once, okay, one time, okay, we'll give you a slap on the wrist, you go and play video games for 6 months. It's just disgusting. Now, in the past couple of years since the incident happened, my son had surgery on his wrist. He likes to play basketball. He's very uncomfortable to play basketball. And it's just, among other things, it affected his whole life. It's just a terrible, terrible thing. He has physical therapy 3 days a week. And these 6 individuals are walking the streets, roaming around like nothing, not a care in the world. And it's almost 2 years. I mean, unfortunately, down in Maryland, so it's 4 years. It's horrible. They're pushing plea bargains back before nothing gets done. We have heard from, when my son got beaten up by these 6 individuals, we heard from many politicians. But I must quote Mayor Adams was a candidate, Governor Hochul. I must take notice with Mr. Nadler. You're a Jewish New Yorker. I called your office numerous times. I called Mr. Schumer's office, another Jewish New Yorker, numerous times. No one called us back. Neither one of you came out of statement on my son's incident. Okay? You're a Jewish New Yorker. You have Jewish roots here. Behavior like this enables D.A. Bragg to just do whatever he wants to do. If you guys would have come out with a statement from Washington and said, we condemn this beating to Mr. Borgen's son. We condemn condemn this act. Maybe Mr. Bragg would have taken this case a little more seriously, and I call you out on it. And most of my friends, I am so disheartened with you and Mr. Schumer, you don't understand.
You know, this is amazing to me. I feel for this man. As an American Jew, I can tell you I read something the other day that was unbelievable. And it's part and parcel of this when you talk about Democrats. You know, it's amazing. You rarely hear Democrats criticize their own party. I'm talking about Democrats anywhere, not just elected Democrats. But you always hear Republicans criticize their party. Republicans will criticize McConnell, they'll criticize Trump, they'll criticize Romney. You do not hear Democrats criticize Schumer or Biden and so forth. What about Hakeem Jeffries? You know, more and more information's coming out on this Jeffries family, just how deeply soaked in racism and anti-Semitism that family is, including Hakeem Jeffries when he was 19 or 20 in a New York college and head of a black union or black association of students, and how he came to the strong defense of his uncle, Leonard Jeffries, a notorious racist and anti-Semite who was even removed from his job at SUNY. Hakeem Jeffries has put out the line since he's been in politics that, you know, he loves his uncle but didn't agree with his theories. Well, they weren't theories, what he was saying about the Jews. They were flat-out falsehoods. And then they found this information where he not only invited his uncle to speak at the university on behalf of his group, but he praised his uncle, he praised Louis Farrakhan, who had also been invited. And so his roots in the anti-Semitism movement within the black community goes much, much deeper than he was willing to say or has ever said. And he still won't admit it. This was a report recently, last week, by CNN. So what does this have to do with anything, right? So they did a survey of Democrats who are Jews in New York, and the vast majority who they spoke to gave Hakeem Jeffries a pass and still support him. And still support him. Why? Because he's a Democrat. The Democrat Party has worked very, very hard and successfully in putting that institution in front of the country, that institution in front of faith. So if you're a secular Jew, you're drawn more to the Democrat Party than you are to your own faith. If you're a secular Catholic, you're drawn more to the Democrat Party than you are to your faith. And I go right down the list. The Democrat Party has succeeded in many ways in becoming a Marxist-like party where your alliance and allegiance to the party is more important than your alliance or allegiance to anything else. That's also why you see the Democrat Party and its teacher unions and others at war with the nuclear family. The family, faith, the rule of law get in the way of the revolution.
Want to see more Mark Levin? Go to LevinTV.com and subscribe now.